Lindsay Shepherd is a grad student at Wilfrid Laurier University in Waterloo, Ontario. She's also a teaching assistant, which is sort of like a junior professor. She was teaching a course in critical thinking, and she showed a clip of Canada's most famous critical thinker, Professor Jordan Peterson of the University of Toronto. You'll remember he was the professor who said he didn't want to have to use the made-up politically correct language to call people by weird names like "je" and "jur" instead of "he" and "her." He said he was worried that new laws made it a human rights offense not to use made-up Orwellian language like that. And the far left went nuts against him, trying to drive him out of the school. The university's administration pounced on him too, but for the first time in memory, a professor fought back and won. Lindsay Shepherd had the audacity to show a clip of Peterson in class, not to advocate for him, but simply to show him as one point of view in a debate. Pretty much what the course is about, what university is about. The speech, from what I understand, was a TV Ontario show called The Agenda with Steve Paikin, which is about as mild as TV gets in Canada. Now, let's say you don't like that. All right, fine. So debate it. You practice your critical thinking. You practice being an intellectual grown-up. You speak out. Lindsay Shepherd isn't exactly the most terrifying person in the world. She says she's left-wing and progressive, and I'm sure that's true. There's no adult who could honestly say they were afraid to ask a leftist question of a mild-mannered leftist teaching assistant at a leftist campus. It's just not real. But Lindsay was summoned to a kangaroo court, a sort of star chamber, where she was grilled by fellow academics for having the audacity to have even shown Professor Peterson to the class. They literally compared showing that video to showing a Hitler video. They said that. They called the video, showing the video, violence. They said that. And despite her requests, they never actually showed Lindsay the complaint against her, what it said, or who made it, or even how many complaints there were. That's Star Chamber stuff, kangaroo court stuff. Now, you may have heard about this story. It got some press, at least in some places. But over the weekend, an audio recording of that Star Chamber hearing was leaked to Global News, about 10 minutes long. And it is amazing. It is shocking. It is infuriating. A pack of academics, mainly feminist men, you know the kind, and a Marxist woman ganging up on Lindsay, berating her, comparing her to a Nazi, literally driving her to tears. She was crying. All right, enough from me. Here, listen to the tape.
That might have been seen as problematic by some of the students, maybe even threatening.
I don't see how someone would rationally think it was threatening. I could see how it might challenge their existing ideas, but for me, that's the spirit of the university, is challenging ideas that you already have. And I don't know who this came from. I would be interested to see the original complaint or complaints, because I don't really have any context as to what exactly their problem was.
Sorry, can I?
The thing is, can you shield people from those ideas? Am I supposed to comfort them and make sure that they are insulated away from this? Is that what the point of this is? Because to me, that is so against what a university is about. So against it. I was not taking sides. I was presenting both arguments.
That sounds pretty reasonable, doesn't it? That feminist male says the video was threatening, and she pushed back. Good for her. But then listen, I'm going to let this part run for a minute and a half. Just listen to this craziness.
So the thing is about this is, if you're presenting something like this, you have to think about the kind of teaching climate that you're creating. And this is actually, these arguments are counter to the Canadian Human Rights Code. Ever since, and I know that you talked about C-16, ever since this passed, it is discriminatory to be targeting someone due to their gender identity or gender expression. So bringing something like that up in class, not critically, and I understand that you're trying to
It was critical. I introduced it critically.
How so?
I said, it was in the spirit of debate.
Okay, in the spirit of the debate is slightly different than being okay, this is a problematic idea that we maybe want to unpack.
But that's taking sides.
Yes.
It's taking sides for me to be oh, look at this guy. Everything that comes out of his mouth is BS, but we're going to watch anyway.
Okay. So I understand the position that you're coming from and your positionality, but the reality is that it has created a toxic climate for some of the students.
How many?
It's great that.
Who? Like how many?
Okay,
One?
may I speak?
I have
It is,
I have no concept of like how many people complained, like what their complaint was. You haven't showed me the complaint.
Yes, I understand that this is upsetting, but there's also confidentiality matters.
The number of people is
With respect.
confidential.
Yes.
Did you hear that male feminist there? He said that it is illegal to have certain opinions in Canada. He said it's illegal to call someone he or her if they want to be called she or je. And he's enforcing that law in his own way in an academic classroom. He's saying that, Lindsay, let adults hear illegal material. By the way, Liberals mocked Dr. Peterson when he warned that this would be word policing. Well, you just heard it. That male feminist sure is lecturing Lindsay and tries to shut her up even in the Star Chamber when she speaks back. What a crock. Saying a complaint against her can't be shown to her for confidentiality reasons. Can you imagine that? Well, if that's the case, if you don't have the right to confront your accuser, imagine if everyone just made secret complaints about everyone else and the targets never got to see the charges but had to defend them anyways, never got to push back against the accuser. Imagine even claiming that the number of complaints was secret. That's baloney. But that's a university campus these days. All right, here's some more. This is about 90 seconds. Take a listen.
You're perfectly welcome to your own opinions,
Mhm.
but when you're bringing it into the context of the classroom, that can become problematic. And that can become something that creates an unsafe learning environment for students.
But when they leave the university, they're going to be exposed to these ideas. So I don't see how I'm doing a disservice to the class by exposing them to ideas that are really out there. And I'm sorry I'm crying. I'm stressed out because this to me is so wrong. It's so wrong.
Can I mention the gendered violence, gendered and sexual violence policy?
Yeah, please.
So under that, it does, gendered violence doesn't just include sexual violence, but it also includes targeting folks based on gender. So that includes transphobia, biphobia, homophobia. All those sorts of things are protected under the policy, and so those are things that Laurier has upheld as values as well as the Ontario Human Rights Code. And so those are things that we're responsible for not impacting our students in that way, and not spreading transphobia in that way.
An unsafe environment, eh? Oh, yes. Sexual violence, said the leftist woman on the Inquisition. There's no fancy way to put it. That is nuts. Lindsay was in tears now, by the way. Of course, it's what, 3 against 1, 4 against 1 in a secret hearing with a secret complaint, and she's being called a monster, being called violent for simply trying to teach, making a grown woman cry. Think about that. You make a grown woman cry. I'm not saying that's an automatic stop everything moment, but maybe it's a stop for a second and do a gut check about what you're doing moment. No, not for these tolerance cops. They love that she was crying. That's what they live for. This is how they prove that they're more tolerant than anyone else, by being intolerant to her. This is how they prove they're more kind than anyone, by being vicious to her. There's more. Take a listen.
So this is basically like playing, not to kind of do the thing where everything is kind of compared to Hitler, but this is like neutrally playing a speech by Hitler or Milo Yiannopoulos from Gamergate. This is the kind of thing that departmentally, in terms of like critical communication studies and in terms of the course of what we're trying to do, is diametrically opposed to everything that we've been talking about in the lectures.
So Professor Jordan Peterson is like Hitler. Oh, and Milo Yiannopoulos too. How insane must you be to think that those are the 2 worst names you can muster? You're as bad as Hitler. And Milo, a Jewish gay guy with black gay husband who makes jokes about feminists. I swear I thought this was fake. It was just too insane. Here, listen to some more.
Sorry, what did I violate in that policy?
So gender-based violence, transphobia in that policy, causing harm to trans students by framing their identity as invalid or their pronouns as invalid,
Or something
potentially invalid,
So I caused harm,
which
and
is
violence.
under the Ontario Human Rights Code a protected thing, and also something that Laurier holds as a value.
So now it's gender-based violence, causing harm. To say that je and jure is invalid is like rape. These people are insane. And they're going after a leftist woman, by the way. Just shut down the university. Just shut it down. It's irreparable. So you've got some crazy Maoists who say this is the law, and they're enforcing the law in their bizarre, lawless kangaroo court. No rules, just a pylon, no lawyer for the victim there, no procedural fairness. But they ended by saying this is what Laurier University stands for, Wilfrid Laurier. I think they're right on that, though, don't you think?
Okay, so that's not something that you have an issue with? The fact that that happened? Like,
I mean,
are you
I
sorry
know
that
I know in my heart, and I know I expressed to the class that I'm not transphobic. And if any of them, I don't know, again, I don't know what they said, but I don't think I gave away any kind of political position of mine. I remained very neutral. And
that's kind of the problem.
That's kind of the problem, says the male feminist at the end there. She was neutral. So she is a Nazi-loving, violent person who must be shamed and thrown out. What do you think? I reached out to Lindsay by email and said we'd be happy to crowdfund a lawyer for her. She wrote back and thanked me, but declined. I think maybe she's worried about taking help from the rebel. Fine. I hope she reconsiders, so if she does, we're ready to help her. But I've launched a petition anyways that you can sign. It's just a petition, and we'll hand-deliver it to Wilfrid Laurier University. Here's the petition. Wilfrid Laurier University must dismiss the Orwellian complaint against Lindsay Shepherd, apologize to her, and reaffirm its commitment to academic freedom. Now, of course they're not going to. Of course they won't. It's in their DNA. They're insane. You can't tell insane people to stop being insane. The petition isn't really for them. It's for us ourselves to show that we're not part of the craziness. We just won't be. Go to SaveLindsay.com to stand up to this craziness. And if Lindsay changes her mind and will accept our help, we will hire a lawyer for her too. Go to SaveLindsay.com and we'll deliver the petition to the university. That's really happening, and you doubt that's the only case of it. That's just the only one that's being recorded. Go to SaveLindsay.com.